Now, thank you very much, Madam, for allowing me into your office today so that through this, the public may get to have an insight on this sensitive matter called depression, its causes, effects, and even some of the remedial steps that can be used to curb and manage this scourge. Thank you.
Welcome. I'm Catherine Muthoni, working in Psychiatry Department, Thika Level 5, and I handle psychiatric patients.
Now, what is depression?
Okay, depression is a broad word, and it simply involves about mood. The person will present with a low mood, sadness, whereby the patient will just feel that he does not want to do anything, and this thing you cannot interrupt it, such that you cannot just brighten up the person at a go. So it is an ongoing thing, such that it has been building up for some time.
No. What are some of the features that characterize a person suffering from depression?
Mostly the patients, the kind of persons we get, they have low mood, such that this person is irritable, easily irritated. Any comment, any mention of something this person does not value or just feels that it is a negative thing to him. Secondly, there is anxiety. This patient will just look anxious, of which he cannot really explain, but he's just not settled. Then there is changes in sleep, whereby the patient can either sleep too much or have very little sleep at night. There will be feeding changes. This patient will overfeed, such that they gain a lot of weight. Alternatively, the patient will come with no feeds, the lips are dry, looks lethargic, has not fed for some time. Also the mood, as I said, will change, such that this person will always be low, does not want any interruption, just wants to live in his or her own world. And then there is psychomotor retardation, and this whereby the patient will just don't want to do anything. He won't go to work, he won't bathe, he won't feed, as I've said, such that everything is he just wants to be there. Yeah.
Now, could there be stages of manifestation of depression?
There is a start. You have to start from somewhere. So this thing keeps disturbing, especially when it comes to the causes. It will keep disturbing, such that this condition deteriorates day by day, and eventually the patient will just be down, such that it's very hard now to arouse this patient back to normal.
Differentiating stress from depression has disturbed many people now. Could there be a clear-cut difference between depression and stress?
So stress and depression are two different things, whereby stress is situational and environmental, such that you have a disturbing issue, something that is constantly disturbing you when it comes to stress. And when this element is removed, the patient becomes relieved and can go back to normal life. But when these stressors continue being there, now this patient will lead to depression. The individual now becomes depressed because it is ongoing, such that meaning is the same. The situation is not changing. It is constantly there.
Depression can result from stress.
Yes.
Now, as a psychiatrist, what are some of the common depression cases you do encounter in this particular department?
Okay, depression comes in many forms, and there are very many causes whereby we go to causes. Some are genetic, whereby it flows in families, such that maybe if you ask when you're taking the history, the patient will tell you, my mother had depression, my father had depression. So it is genetic, such that there are some chemical substances in that patient's body which when triggered, they'll automatically develop into depression. Then there are other factors like environmental factors, like loss of job. Somebody loses a job, loses a loved one, a very emotional or a very severe event, such that maybe an accident, fire. You witness something very bad, and it affects you directly. So those are some of the things that can make you become depressed. Also, we have nutritional issues. Especially in children, if you don't get enough nutrients as you grow, the requirements that your body requires, eventually this person becomes depressed, because some of the chemicals in this food, assists in the nerves, in the repairing the nerves, circulation. So the body as a whole will be affected, and it can be one factor. Another thing is chronic diseases, such that way you have to think, I have a chronic disease, I'll keep taking drugs the rest of my life. Every day I have to keep taking medicine. Is there any time that I'll ever heal? So it is something that is continuous. Another thing can be chemical changes in the brain. Once you become, the stressors are new. When you get this stress, because as you said, the stress will eventually lead to depression if not counteracted earlier. These chemical changes, they'll continue being produced in the brain in large amounts and eventually lead to depression. Yes.
Now, in assessing patients suffering from depression, what are some of the factors you do consider? Do you look at the family background or maybe marital status of some? What are the factors that you do consider when assessing a patient suffering from depression?
Okay, when I meet the patient, even the facial expression will tell you. Some patients may tell you, I'm simply depressed. So history taking is very, very important and very key, because you have to ask what makes you feel sad. Maybe you might come and tell me you're okay, but from your facial expression I just see that you have an issue. So you have to probe, ask questions, leading questions that will give you leading answers. Sometimes it's a bit hard to extract that information, but when you reassure this patient, when you, especially in confidentiality, when you have the tactics of now extracting that information, the patient initially might open up and tell you everything, some even go into tears, and they'll explain to you exactly what is happening in their lives. Some will tend to hide, especially, I'll give an example like domestic issues. A mother comes, she's being beaten by the husband at home. It will be a bit hard, because maybe she'll feel, and she has been told that she has to maintain her marriage. You're not supposed to expose your husband. So it's a bit hard. But when you assure her and you tell her and assure her that it's for her own benefit, they eventually open up. So history taking is very, very important, and assuring that patient that it is all in confidentiality.
Now, in this particular department, according to your statistics, which age group today do report the highest cases of depression?
We have majority are the adults, the young adults. Personally, I've witnessed as young as 4 years old, and as old as even the 80s and the 90s, depending on the background, on the areas that they come from, and also the factors. So depression cuts across everyone, be it men, be it women, be it children, be it the elderly, be it the young. Because in the current economic times, in the current times that we are living in, there are so many stressors in the world, and some majority of us have poor coping mechanisms. You don't know what to do, you don't know where to turn to. So it's a bit challenging for them to cope. So I cannot be really specific that it's about this age, it's about this age.
Now, do you sometimes get severe depression cases that warrant you to admit the patients?
Yes, we usually get them. The duration of admission depends on the type of patient and how severe it is. I would give an example whereby a patient comes maybe with nutritional issues. You have to first deal with those the urgent issues, the nutrition, maybe the dehydration. So you come up with the patient first with drugs, then eventually you go now to other management. So the duration of admission depends on the severity of the patients, but we still discourage those long-term admissions. We like patients recovering and healing back at home, because the recovery area or the recovery environment should be basically at home, where the patient is familiar with, where the patient will feel cared for, so that we avoid now that prolonged stay in the hospital.
Now that you said you prefer when they recover at home, but do you make follow-ups for your patients even after counseling them or after treating them in the best way possible? Do you make follow-ups? And in what ways do you follow up for these patients, maybe to ascertain whether they got relieved or not?
Okay, first of all, we work together. I don't work alone. We work as a team. We have social workers, we have counselors, and we have even the psychologists who really talk to these people. They have to identify, because as a team, you can sit down and discuss a scenario whereby each of you will pick something that will guide you as to why this patient seems to be depressed. Maybe through the counselor, she was able to pick psychosocial issues at home. Those are the domestic issues. Maybe I was able to pick maybe an illness, and somebody else picked something. So when we piece them together, we're able to deal with them. We usually make follow-ups, especially for the outpatients. What we do, when you come as an initial patient, initially we give you a 1 week return, then 2 weeks, like that, depending on the progress and the response. We go lengthening the return periods, so that this patient is also able to come up, himself or herself, come up and gain that self-esteem that will also help him or her in healing. We also have the social work department. This one makes follow-ups at home, whereby we go, we assess the home environment, and they're able also to identify other stressors, like especially in children. This one is very key in children. Some are mistreated, they don't stay with their parents. You know, relatives will come and tell you all sorts of stories, beautiful stories, because they want to impress you. But when you get to the ground, you find things are very different. When you probe this child as an individual, when you talk to him or her, ask him any problems, these children will give you a lot of information, because by the way, many people have a mentality that children do not get depressed. And let me tell you, kids become depressed. They'll have nightmares, they'll have all sorts of issues, they refuse to go to school. Then when the child behaves like that, he'll be seen that he's becoming deviant, of which that is not the case. When you sit this down child properly, with confidence, he'll be able to tell you a lot. So we work as a team. So through this social work, we're able to identify also other stressors. Probably these guys cannot even afford a meal at home, and you're pushing the patient to go and buy a drug, whereby these 100 shillings was meant for the meal in the evening. So those are the kind of things that help us identify other stressors, because if you only concentrate on that patient alone without assessing the other environment, it becomes hectic.
Okay, up to there we'll take a short break, but we'll be back in a short while. Now welcome back. Now, since you became a professional in this particular department, is there any other case that you've encountered that was so much challenging that maybe you can never forget about it?
Okay. And
how did you go through about it?
Yes, I've experienced a very bad case of a child who was mistreated by the grandparents and the uncles and the aunties. The child had lost the mother, the parents actually. So this child was just neglected, was not going to school, and had issues. So when they came, this child was all over, chased away from school because he was just seeing as if he does not want to learn. So when we talked, and I talked to the parents and probed the child, and we found that the issue was he didn't get the parental love that he really needed, because nobody was close to him. He was just like any other child. So initially it was challenging, but after some counseling sessions and follow-ups at home, we were able to talk to the parents, to the grandparents, to the uncles. We did family therapy or family counseling. Then the boy came up and really improved in school. So at least we were happy because it had a good progress.
Now, what are some of the effects of depression on mental and psychological health of an individual?
Okay, the one of the effects, some patients especially when not treated well, they even go up to committing suicide. There are some who even lose their jobs, such that if their family was dependent on them, there'll be economic, also financial and economic losses. The other thing would be some progress into severe mental illnesses and mental issues that they really need to come back to the hospital every now and then so that they are treated. Some even develop other conditions like cardiovascular diseases, whereby they have to keep on having treatments and attending more and more clinics, such that this problem initially started from depression and it progressed either to diabetes, hypertension, and other chronic conditions.
Now we have people of various personalities. We have the sanguines, we have the cholerics, and even the phlegmatic. But we have these phlegmatic types. They do not easily share the information. They do not speak their minds. Now, how do you help such people when they are overcome by depression, so that they may speak out their minds, and you check on the ways that are proportionate to helping them?
Okay. We usually have a score sheet. We usually call it a score sheet, whereby we rank. There are several questions in the list of questions whereby we score the patient at the end of the question, whereby we're able to classify them in, especially in which type of category they fall. Is it mild, moderate, or severe depression? Yes.
Now, still we have the people with various disabilities. We have the blind, for example, even though the dumb. Now, how do you go about this? For example, the dumb, they are not able to speak. How do you assess them so that you may get the problem or the cause of depression, especially when they are depressed? How do you assess such people with such disabilities?
Okay, when it comes to people with disabilities, for us it's a bit challenging because of the staffing, because you have to refer maybe to a sign language, somebody who will be able to understand. So that referral system also becomes challenging because maybe in our setup we don't have somebody who will be able to cater to them. We refer them to another facility. But we try our level best to make a follow-up and ensure that this patient gets help. Because most of the time patients rarely come alone. They'll come accompanied. So we usually advise now the guardian, if this person won't get help, just come back to us. We try and see how best you can be able to help this patient.
Now, apart from guidance and counseling, could there be any other non-pharmacological intervention that you do use in managing stressed people or even the depressed people? Yes, which one?
Yes, we usually encourage them to join clubs. There are clubs which maybe the depressed people have formed, where they go, they share their problems, whereby you witness one sharing maybe an experience that one had and how he was able to overcome the problem. So clubs usually help them. Secondly, we book them, we try to integrate them into a common clinic, whereby on a certain day we'll book people with similar problems, so that when we go into a psychotherapy group, we'll share together, everyone speaks their mind out, they're able to learn from each other and they're able to motivate each other.
Now, in what ways do you conduct public awareness, maybe to cater for these people living in marginalized areas? You get people living in some villages where they cannot get access to psychiatrists like you, maybe they cannot get access to guidance and counselors. Now, in what ways do you conduct public awareness so that these people also get to know of the effects or the causes, even the symptoms of depression, so that they realize they are with such symptoms, they can know that they are suffering from depression?
Okay. That's a big challenge for us, especially in terms of staffing, financing, and now the accessibility to those areas, because some of these things require funds. Fine. At times you volunteer. As a volunteer, you go maybe to a local church, a local baraza. You try to give a health talk, the warning signs, encourage these people to bring their people to the hospital. But it's not a common thing because of our working schedule. The number of trained staff are very few. So getting people to these patients back in the remote areas, in those hard to access area, it's a challenge.
Now, are there some legal issues to protect the depressed from landing in the hands of courts? You get that when somebody is depressed, he is hopeless, he is even desperate for counseling. And so this may see them landing into the hands of quacks who will even squander their money in the process of counseling them. They get to challenge these people and even take their money in the name of counseling them. Are there some legal issues that protect them from the same?
Yes. Yes, there is a law under the Mental Health Act that protects all mentally ill patients. Depending on the timing that this patient gets to us, we're able to protect them. We use the chiefs, the sub-chiefs, the wazee wa kijiji, wanaitwa nyumba kumi initiative, because these guys are the closest to them. With that, if you know there's that challenge that this guy is being exploited, maybe by the relatives, and mostly it's by the relatives, maybe by the people living around him. We usually try to use the law to get to these people and we get helped.
Now, what are some of the current trends that are seen in the measures or even the approaches of managing stress? Maybe with the onset of technology, there could be some measures that have come with technology in managing and even curbing stress and depression.
Okay, currently, with that is only the only thing that is maybe coming up is the health education, whereby we use the media. Maybe as a volunteer, some are paid. They go, they educate the people. Though the catchment is not very good because not majority of us are able to understand maybe the language, to watch that television. Maybe the timing when the program is being aired, you're busy elsewhere. So as much as they are trying, we are still far from accessing. But the major methods that we use are the medication and the counseling.
Now, as a professional, what is your final message to these people struggling with depression and such related cases like stress and the rest? What is now your final message to them?
I would advise the public and the general, the relatives, the caretakers, your friends, your colleagues. If you notice anything, somebody having withdrawn, having low mood, just seek medical help. Accompany them to the medical facility. You'd rather come to the hospital, we reassure you that all is well, rather than wait and come when everything now has gone down the drain. So we advise the relatives and everybody, all the caretakers, your colleagues, anybody, tell them, accompany them to the hospital. Don't fear, because eventually these guys end up committing suicide. And by the time they are committing suicide, that's when we care, we come to know, you give stories, oh, this person was telling us he's going to commit suicide. So we believe these people can be saved if at all we are keen and we take care of each other as our brother and sister.
Now, thank you very much, Madam, for the information and also for your time. Thank you very much.
Welcome.